Hi everyone. It is day 24 of National Epilepsy Awareness Month. Thank you for those that are continuing to follow Alex's story and our story, the knowledge and information that I'm sharing. I truly hope that this is opening people's eyes and giving you a glimpse into a world that you may have known nothing about until now. And I hope it inspires you to make a difference and maybe inspires you to pass this knowledge along. So thank you. Today I am continuing to share Alex's story where we left off. We had just had that rough hospital stay that I talked about yesterday. It was tough. We came back from that and it took a minute for her to, again, get back to her baseline. It's always back to what's her normal, what's normal for her. And COVID came and it's changed everything, as we all know. And for us, it meant having to wait to get her back in for another EEG. We knew another overnight, probably 2-day EEG was going to be important because the EEG she had when we came in through the emergency room and ended up getting admitted, it was a hot mess. She was a hot mess. There was nothing typical about that stay. And it makes the EEG really difficult to read when there's a lot going on. She will always have an EEG that does not look normal or typical. It's challenging to read in general, but when you add in the fact that she was having an acute onset of myoclonic seizures and the drugs, and it's hard to really get a feel. But they were starting to see the beginnings of what was looking like we were heading towards an LGS diagnosis. LGS is Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. She already had 2 rare epilepsy diagnoses, so a third one, it just felt like a punch in the gut. It's just the cards keep stacking up against her. But we had a heads up from our neurologist that it might be coming. But again, you've got to be able to see there's these slow wave spikes you see in an EEG that are kind of a signature of LGS, also presenting with multiple different kinds of seizures, which she does. So we knew it was a real possibility. But in addition to that, and wanting to get some confirmation around that, we still were dealing with this breath holding, which everyone kept insisting had nothing to do with the seizures that we're on top of. So on top of her regular seizures, waking up, having clusters and seizing, she would finish holding her breath and her head would drop. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm a little dizzy. We've seen what that looks like with her. And so we needed to figure that out as well. And then another thing that had started was we were suspecting she was having seizures when she was sleeping. I've mentioned before subclinical versus clinical, and I'll say again, subclinical is what we don't see. It's what's happening inside the brain. Someone can be having seizure activity constantly inside the brain, but you're not seeing it clinically, meaning how it presents visibly to you. And she was waking up a lot in the middle of the night, and she's usually a pretty good sleeper. She would get up in the morning after having been down for 10, 11 hours, and an hour later she'd want to go lay down for a nap. She started taking multiple naps a day again, or just wanting to have that quiet time. She was tired. She wasn't herself. And then on top of that, we were starting to see more regression. We were starting to see she was wanting to roll instead of crawl, and it took us a long time to get her from rolling to crawling. She wasn't wanting to sit as much. She would want to lay down to eat. And you'd have to put her in something she couldn't lay down in to get her to sit, and then she would just be upset because she didn't want to sit. She was losing a lot of words that she had gained, and her speech apraxia started to be a lot more noticeable. So speech apraxia is this disconnect between the brain and the mouth. It's like what you want to say, and it may be a word she has said 1,000,000 times, like ball, but she just can't get her brain to connect with her mouth and say the word ball. And it's very noticeable when that starts to get heightened, especially when it's a lot of, with words that we know she's very familiar with and has said many times. So we had to wait till June, which felt like such a long time to have to wait to get some answers and some confirmation. And none of that improved over that time, none of it. So I was eager to get into the hospital in June. And we did have a 2-night stay to do an extended EEG. And they confirmed the LGS, which even though we knew it was coming, it doesn't change the fact that it's hard to hear it. Because we wrapped our heads around hydrocephalus. We wrapped our heads around infantile spasms, which are terrifying. We've wrapped our head around PCDH19, a gene mutation that's connected to epilepsy, and also a lot of potential behavioral and neuropsych issues as she gets older. We've wrapped our head around delays in every area of her development and what that's going to look like for her as she grows up. And now there's another diagnosis that is also rare. That's kind of the key word with her. She's a little unicorn. And not only rare, but also presents with issues with intellectual disability and cognitive development and a slew of things that can come down the pipeline. So we know the cards are stacked pretty high, but it's all knowledge, and we have to take that knowledge and we have to figure out the next step. So the next step coming out of that hospital stay was a hard one for me. We'd reached the point where we were going to need to try a benzo. Benzodiazepines, they are, if any of you have ever experienced them, they're extremely addictive. They can have extremely brutal side effects. They're rough. I mean, these drugs, none of these seizure drugs are any joke, but benzos, they were a category I was hesitant to dive into with her. But I did my research, had a long talk with the neurologist. We talked about 5 different medication ideas, the pros, the cons. I went back to PubMed. I like to look at the science. And the fact is, especially with LGS coming into the mix as well, Onfi, or clobazam is the generic of it, was going to be the way we needed to go. And that is what we decided. The first week was tough. She was not herself. She was really tired, wouldn't eat. She still hasn't fully gotten her appetite back, but frankly, the side effects that she's had with the clobazam are not nearly as severe as they can be. I mean, that girl's tough. She's made of some serious tough stuff. She never ceases to blow my mind. So here we are, and I am thrilled to say we are just over 4 months of not seeing any visible seizures, clinical seizures. So that's been a beautiful thing. I mean, really. And she's not having seizure head drops after the breath holding anymore, which, even though they still can't figure out the connection, they confirmed on the EEG that every time she had a head drop after holding her breath, it was a seizure. So we were right. They also confirmed she was seizing all night long when she was sleeping. She was having subclinical seizure activity in her brain. This is, and I come back to this, but this is that mom gut. You have to trust your gut, and you have to push when you feel really strongly about something, and that's what we did. So it doesn't mean we don't still have some complications. It doesn't mean there's not still some things that are concerning, but we did go in October, early October, and we had a follow-up EEG to confirm that they're not seeing seizure activity right now. Will that last? No, not with all of her diagnoses and everything she has going on. But could it last for a while longer? Could we give her a chance, give her brain a chance to develop and grow and prosper a little bit without all the seizure activity pulling her back? Yes. And so we're gonna take it while we can. Let me tell you, we're celebrating every day that she goes another day without a seizure. So I'll talk a little bit more later about some of the other things and some of the other challenges we're still facing. But she's doing well, considering she has 3 rare epilepsy diagnoses, which any one stands alone as terrifying and with tons of possible negative outcomes. She's got 3 on top of her hydrocephalus. So the fact that she's doing as well as she's doing, it's a little miracle. She's a little miracle. And yes, it's hard work. It's her hard work. It's our hard work. It's everything that we're doing to give her every single possible chance to reach her potential, whatever that potential is. That's what all of this is about, everything that I've been sharing. It's about allowing these children to have a chance, having a chance to reach whatever their potential is. And they can't do it if they don't have the right treatments, if they don't have the right course of action to help steer their epilepsy in the right direction, to help steer their development in the right direction. So no support is too little. Thank you for listening. Today was a long one. I appreciate you all, and we'll talk again soon.